today we're going to talk about how branding and digital works together, and how to get really exciting social content from a framework that helps you develop the brand in a digital context, and you get really good results through this framework. So as an agency working with all these different hospitality clients, we keep coming across the same problems, and we've sort of been looking at these problems, and there's a lot of uninspiring content around. You know, how many times have you seen on your Facebook feed another picture of a cocktail on a Friday saying, "Hey, it's Friday, come and have a cocktail," or another picture of a food dish, or you guys all work in hospitality, and I'm sure a lot of you are involved in social, and you might make a post, you think that's a good post, and you don't get the engagement that you thought you might get. You've put in a lot of time to your social, and you're not getting the reach that you thought you might get. You're working with a number of different agencies, and you find that there's too many agencies involved, and you're getting confused about like all these agencies I've got, and who does what, and what, is it PR, is it digital, is it whatever? So and you're also trying to get bookings. Like how is all this converting into bookings? How is all this social activity getting me more business? So we keep coming across these problems, and that's because of this kind of traditional branding downwards model that a lot of businesses work to, and we don't think this is the right way to do things anymore. And traditionally this has been how it had, especially in the bigger companies. You'll have a branding agency that says, "This is our brand," and all the other guys have to live that brand. Even the interior designer has to try and make that brand reality in the restaurant itself. Or you'll have the social agency, or your CRM agency, or your web agency, or your advertising agency, or your PR agency, and all these guys have to try and create this brand, and this doesn't seem to be effective. And branding is a kind of silo strategy, and it doesn't seem to work that well. And we often get a client will say, "Here's our brand," and give us a brand guidelines pack similar to this, where we'll have colors, and it's like, that's not a brand. That's not a brand. That's an identity. That's a graphic representation, and that digital is then used as a kind of amplifier, but only as an amplifier. So you've got your concept and your strategy. You create your identity. You create the experience within the restaurant with your team, with your waiting staff, your environment, and so on. And then you say to your digital, "Right, go and tell everyone about it. Get it out there." And that doesn't seem to be the most effective way of doing things either. So the big problem here is that traditional branding treats digital as an implementation channel rather than central to the brand exploration. And we think that there is a better way of going about things. This got us thinking. Metaphorically, we were sitting there scratching our heads going, there's got to be a better way to do it. And we think that using digital branding, so using a different type of strategy, will create an opportunity to develop experiences, to test and learn different things, to ultimately feel out what makes it powerful. The best thing about sort of digital branding is that you get instant feedback. Every time you post stuff on Facebook or tweet things, you get people commenting, you get people sharing it. You can immediately see whether that's effective or that's effective, and you can constantly test, and you can analyze the data, and that's incredibly powerful. So we developed a framework at Ignite, which we're going to share in this presentation today, which we hope actually you guys will find valuable. You'll be able to take it away with you and use it with your own teams, and apply that to your own businesses and see what comes out. And so hopefully you'll be able to develop even better content for your social channels. And we're going to talk through each of these different parts of the process in turn. And we've used this model now all over the world. We've used it in the US, we've used it in the UK, we've used it with all sorts of different clients. We've had CEOs engaged in this framework. We've had waiting staff engaged in this framework. So we've been able to work collaboratively across all different positions within the business to generate some really exciting social content at the end of the day. We've wrapped all of this up in a case study just to give some real life examples. We've worked with a company called Walensky's Grill. Walensky's Grill is a rollout concept for Smith & Walensky. Smith & Walensky's the steak restaurant. They've developed this brand, Walensky's Grill, to roll out across the US. They've opened one site so far in Chicago. And it was a great opportunity because it was very much a blank canvas. And the CEO was very engaged, the CEO, a guy called Michael. Basically said to us, guys, I want you to help me develop this brand so that I can roll it out across the US, which we've got funding to do. So we're gonna use this example, and it was great because Michael got so engaged in this process. Michael's the CEO. He got so engaged in this process that when we were feeding back the results of the framework, he almost shell shocked. He almost started crying. Actually, he got really emotional, and I'm not exaggerating at all. And he actually got up when we were in the middle of going through things and working out the positioning with him, demonstrating what our results were. He got up. He went into the restaurant. He took the tie off the greeter, threw it away. He went and pulled the tablecloths off, and went behind the bar and changed the music, because the power of the digital process that we went through to generate to work out the positioning, he immediately changed the environment of the restaurant, and within a few simple things, he actually changed the vibe of the restaurant like that straight away, and that was how powerful this was for him. So there you go. That's kind of intro as to what we're going to do. Sam's going to explain the first step and how we sort of took that forward.
Yeah, cool. So I think I just wanted to frame it within our kind of overall process first, so you see where it kind of sits in. And I think that kind of top-down approach that Paul was talking about, what we kept finding was when we actually went out and started delivering social content or doing website design and learning from the process, that the entire the brand would then evolve significantly over the course of a year, right? So that kind of like siloed approach was actually kind of ineffective, and you'd end up with a far more developed brand after a year of engaging in digital. And that the then core brands was no longer in line with what we were actually doing because we got to a sort of certain level. So I think what we're focused on today is how branding and digital can work together at the top. And I think the old way of thinking is that everything's done in this kind of very siloed approach, right? So it's like, all right, let's go and hand that over to our digital team. Okay, now we've done this, we've created something exciting. Now let's give it to digital, and they can go and reach the people, right? And start communicating it. And that entire sort of way of thinking is completely backwards. I mean, like the way that Charlotte mentioned earlier, that over 50% of people are searching on mobile. Like the numbers of people that are first of all engaging with your business online is that no one else the customers aren't operating that way. It comes from a business perspective, which is create something, now get it out there, and we'll use digital over there, and everyone sort of turns their back, and it happens over there. And I think that needs to kind of shift in a sort of mentality, really. So we'll focus today on the top part, which is branding and digital content, and talk through the framework that Paul just introduced. The next phase, what we would then go out and do once we've done that, is to create the kind of digital hub, so be that your Facebook, apps, websites, or whatever, and then down into amplification. That's a lot of what Charlotte was just talking about now, as well as sort of other channels that are available in digital. The really key thing is this kind of test and learn aspect. It's not just reporting on revenue figures or on how many impressions you get and that kind of stuff. It's about how people are engaging with what you're producing, and allowing branding to become a kind of continual evolution within a framework, right? Because we still need to be on message within certain parameters to continue it. So, strangely, a lot of what we'll talk about today is not digital specifically. It's actually could be used for lots of things, but it could be used for an offline kind of process. But that's the point in a way, that you don't need to think, oh, what digital? I need some tips on how to get that bit further. It's about creating something exciting and interesting to your business that exists beyond the four walls of your restaurant to actually get people interested and excited. Once you have that, then you can do what you need across any channels and really kind of engage people. So this is the process we went through. As Paul said, that whenever we do this, you really need to get a kind of like all areas of the business involved, or at least a representative. There's no point in having the marketing department come along and work and deliver something if you haven't got the operations guys involved, or you haven't got the CEO or someone who's going to be a key kind of influencer, right? So the first step is to get the right mix of people in the room together, right? And that's when you start to get the most interesting insights as well. Once you've got your kind of team together, really fairly quickly, you want to get into the customer frame of mind. I think that in hospitality, we are in the people business, right? So instinctively, you understand people, you understand the customer, and you craft your product and the restaurant experience around those customers. But just by doing a kind of quick exercise, we do call it like proto personas. You just do a very quick kind of run through of like, right, who are our core customer groups? Let's get some like demographic information, their interests, their core drivers, their reasons for visiting. Now, what this really does is it gets everyone in the room into the frame of mind of thinking from the customer's perspective, rather than coming with their own intention or prerogative. Right? I think that's just an important thing to start any process off with. Just one point actually on demographics is that people often think that means like 25 to 35 of a certain gender or whatever. That we think much more like in outlooks now rather than in sort of trying to segment people. I think that a 45-year-old guy from the film industry might have exactly the same outlook as a 20-year-old woman who's studying, right? So I think it's to start to think in outlooks and instincts and sort of like emotional drivers. That's when you start to be able to craft interesting experiences for people. So what it all boils down to really, and you can sort of have as many kind of branding frameworks, digital kind of techie words and whatever you want, but really it's like what makes your business special? And that's the kind of the one question that you want to keep at the heart of any process that involves digital or any form of communications, because you serve good food, you have good service, and you have a nice atmosphere, just like every other restaurant in the world, right? Or at least that's what everyone would say about their own restaurant. So really you want to kind of dig deeper and say, what is it that actually makes us interesting, exciting, special, that is someone's going to bother to take time out of their day when they're not eating in your restaurant to actually engage with your business or sort of harness a bit more of a relationship with them. So there's a few kind of tools that we use. I love this tool, just as a kind of almost as a conversation starter. It can really start to kind of frame your digital brand strategy, which is the explicit goal that you would satisfy as a restaurant is that someone's hungry or someone's thirsty and they want someone to go for a cocktail and some nibbles, right? So that then you can supply that, right? Just like the guy next door can do. Like really powerful digital brand strategies will sit within one of these key kind of implicit drivers, so not in between them, but like really centrally within one of them, right? This is based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it's effectively, I'll just quickly run through how each of them can work. Just a note, you can actually sit in any of these. It's not explicit to you. You don't have to be a luxury restaurant to sit in status. It's about the way in which you position it on an emotional level. So Gaucho is a really good example of discovery. You can see here they're really bringing the taste of Argentina to their brand, right? And there's that kind of like implicit desire to want to discover and go on a journey. Sushi, a great example of excitement. Their website launched earlier this year, and it's really kind of high buzz, high energy, all about excitement. Like you know what they're trying to drive at when they talk to you. Gordon Ramsay's restaurants are a great example of status. It's fairly straightforward. The discipline's a really interesting one because it's like this is where like you're kind of the implicit driver that says all these other guys who are saying that you're a special person who sits up here because you've got this sort of status and you can come and enjoy cocktails, that they're all chatting rubbish. Actually, we do the good food, we do the good drink, we have that kind of core thing. So it's like the kind of simply done. So I think that kind of areas that can actually be very powerful, right? If you look into other sectors, there's a lot of people operating within that space. Like if you look at the supermarkets, right, it's related with food. Lidl definitely focus their attentions in discipline for a long time, which is like forget Waitrose, forget this, get good food simply done here from our supermarket. And they're now moving a bit more into discovery as this area gets crowded. So I think it's just a really nice kind of a really nice tool. So yeah, it's like precise ramen, no nonsense, and that kind of approach can be quite powerful. Feng Sushi, good example of security. This kind of like you're safe with us, expert sushi delivery service, like really kind of like going for that core driver. So we often use that tool as a kind of a brainstorming tool to say which will be the most, you overlay your competition over it, and then you start to say what is it that would be an exciting journey for us to go down to launch the digital strategy. The next phase really is about distilling a group brainstorm with the right people in the room down to a more kind of democratic process. So you have your CEOs in the room, you have a bar manager in the room, you have restaurant managers, you have marketing people, and you'll often find that one or two people have they'll take the lead and you might not get what you need from the process, right? So we use a really nice tool where you everyone sits down at the table and everyone takes 5 post-it notes and writes down what makes the business special on 5 different pieces of paper. You then get up and you move one to the left and sit down, then you have to build upon what the person next to you's done. And you go all the way around the table, and by the time you get to the end, you're left with a kind of sea of post-it notes in front of you. It's then your job then to present back to the group, right? So you have your restaurant manager who's presenting back on his initial ideas or her initial ideas that is then being built upon by everyone in the room. And it's a really nice way of sort of digging deeper and deeper and deeper into, okay, we know that service and atmosphere and food and drink are important, but what is it that, as a sort of emotional driver, that makes us that much more exciting than our competitors, right? And you keep drilling, and I think what we would then do is you then sort of take all of that, and you'll find there's like themes and clusters of kind of like insight about what the story is, what's the emotion that we're trying to tap into, and you then cluster them onto a wall like this, right? So that's it. It's like I said, it's not. You could do this. This process could be applied to many things, right? But I think that it really enables you to go beyond, take the thinking a little bit further about what it is that makes your restaurant special. And so that's taken us from the customer mind frame through the kind of implicit drivers and into kind of explore and build to get to something. Now we have to kind of translate that into something that will underpin an effective digital brand strategy. So we're going to use Walensky's Grill, as Paul mentioned. Now we position them within the kind of excitement factor of the implicit drivers. So I'll talk through what we call experience principles, which is effectively any time that anyone comes into contact with your restaurant, your brand, online or otherwise, what do we want them to emotionally feel within that implicit goal of excitement? Well, what are the things that we want them to feel? Now, Walensky's Grill is a bar, diner, sort of grill, right? So it serves meat, serves like nice craft ales, just like the one around the corner. So how can we make them that bit more exciting? Now, the key driver that the key insight we landed on when we were going through that process was that, I mean, they have like actual butchers in the restaurant, right, who are like full-time employed because of the amount of kind of meat that they get through for Smith & Walensky's. So what we wanted to do was to say, okay, the butcher is a place of craft. It's a place, a person. It's as a trade. It's a craft, right? And it's like it's one of the sort of last true craftsmen of the modern age is the butcher, right? Has that kind of like rusticy, nice feel where people are really, they've all got a tattoo. They look after their knife. They look after their, there's a kind of like there's something to it that goes above and beyond just okay. We serve meat and we serve beer, right? It's got a nose to tail from market to your plate, kind of back to basics eating, but there's like an integrity and a passion, right? So we really wanted to start to hang the concept around the idea of the butcher at the heart of the concept. What's nice about that is that it's kind of the best of tradition. No trends, no bull. It's like holds up the best of tradition, but it's also a place to let loose, right? And I think if you can start to capture that excitement, that energy that comes from it, then that performs a basis for a much more powerful communication strategy moving forwards.
So that was 2 examples of the experience principles. I think we came up with about 5 or 6 at the time. And the next step then, as if you refer back to the diagram that we did initially, is to take those experience principles and apply them to what we call content pillars. Content pillars are the supporters of your social strategy. So that's where we're starting to get more detail. So if you think back, we started with a more kind of implicit positioning. We developed all sorts of different ideas. We created our experience principles, and now we're going, okay, what actually are we going to start to put online? So your content pillars completely support and hold up your social strategy and represent your experience principles and your implicit goal that we identified right at the beginning. And these are the ones we did for Walensky's Grill. So you've got the butcher's view. Everywhere he goes, he sees meat. He sees meat, and he's a craftsman. It's about passion and integrity. So creating a personality around the butcher. Locality was a big thing for this place. Really connected to the people of Chicago, sourcing local food, local drink, and a real local perspective. So that is another pillar that we can represent through social channels. Provenance and education was the next one, so from the supply chain through to recipes, but on an authority on all things meat and all things cow, and bringing that to life. And then finally, the kind of the food and drink heroes. Actually, food and drink heroes, and I sort of jokingly said another picture of a cocktail at the beginning, but actually littered in within a more sophisticated strategy, you can get away with a few images of food, but they have to be the best, and it has to support everything else that you've identified. So I'm just going to run through a couple of images that came from the social implementation. So right at the very beginning, we start to create this feeling of an authority on meat, and the butchers guess the cut, and just start posting that on Facebook. You'd be amazed at the engagement that this was right at the beginning, right? You have to start mellow. You can't go straight in with so you have to start creating a vibe over time. But this image alone just got like 400 likes, and 90 people commented about it. So you just start to build a little bit of engagement. Introduced the spring menu again. This got like over 400 likes, and was shared by tens and tens of people. But it starts to represent it's on a butcher's cut. It's a food and drink hero. Then we came out with a hashtag butcher's notes, and the butcher he literally wrote these. So the actual butcher wrote these notes, and then we photographed them, started posting them online. And this just started to get amazing engagement, because our people started sharing it with their friends, and it's like, hey, did you know this? And the butcher really did give away some amazing tips about steak and meat, and slice against the grain, for example, season, sear, rest, and that hashtag worked very effectively. We then started to put this together, a little bit of animation, just simple animation, right? It's not that difficult to do. Most people with a Mac can do it. And we created this Smithology Butcher's Choice sign off, and this got played like 75,000 times, right? So it's like really amazing engagement, shared hundreds and hundreds of times, liked by hundreds and hundreds of people, commented on by hundreds of people, and so you can see how we've started to develop that personality and vibe. We then get a little bit cheekier. So Father's Day came along. It's like, give Dad a badass steak for Father's Day. But you see the imagery represents the content strategy that we'd previously identified. It's about the craftsmanship of that precision cut, that precise piece of meat. But this got like 1,700 likes, this post, right? Amazing. And shared like 200 times. And actually, we had a 30% year-on-year uplift on Father's Day off the back of this campaign in revenue. And this is just a rough and ready GIF that actually was produced by the team back in Chicago, the waiting staff, actually, or the barman, sorry. We got him to do this, just took a few photographs, put it together in a GIF, and posted it online. And so you can start to, once you have direction, you can really start to create the right vibe. We then started getting a little cheekier, and we did this campaign, Calfee, hashtag Calfee, and we basically got people to take selfies of themselves with various cow memorabilia that's littered around the restaurant, and people could post that on social channels, and we ran little competitions to win free steaks and bits and pieces, free drinks and stuff, but just to get engagement. And yeah, I mean, this image alone got 600 likes, and it's like, it's pretty simple. That's a painting that's in the restaurant. We just wrote Calfee on it. But because we'd started to build a vibe, because we'd started to build a personality, we got real engagement and fantastic feedback. We got even more extreme. So this was a butcher's note, where he started being a little bit cheekier. We start messing around with everywhere the butchers go, all he sees is steak. Everywhere he goes, all he sees is cow. So we just mashed together a few cheeky film posters. This one's for Steak Winslet and Leo DiCarpaccio. But that got like 600 likes, right? It didn't take us very long to do. 50 people commented on it. It was shared by lots and lots of people. Same with Apocalypse Cow. And so you can see how we created a social journey. We started off quite mellow, we got a bit more extreme, we started testing different things out, trying different stuff, we got feedback, we realised some stuff worked better than other stuff, and we developed it that way. We created this kind of crescendo with our social content, it's just been tremendously effective.
Cool, so that's kind of the ongoing sort of day-to-day social content that came off the back of the process that we discussed through earlier. Another big part of what we do, which ties a bit more in with what Charlotte was talking about in terms of like targeting and advertising, is doing these kind of bigger multi-channel campaigns to really bring the brand to life in a more of a kind of from a brand perspective. So I think we wanted to produce something that spoke to the butcher, but also was about sort of great excitement. So there was an idea that we had with the guys doing that same process about winning a whole cow, right? So you win a cow's worth of meat as for a party of 25 people. And we ran this across display, across Facebook, across Twitter, Instagram. We did some stuff with Snapchat. There's a lot of ways in which we brought this to life and through the kind of excitement of it. And sort of developing kind of engaging, exciting content. The campaign went very well. And what we really liked about it, which is this kind of idea of like the buy-in in the about how at the restaurant, that's Michael up there, the CEO, and you have the kind of the head chef Matt there, and they did loads of talks around the meat and through a big party. We're posting loads of stuff on social. So you really, by getting that buy-in at the beginning, there was a kind of a complete connection between digital and what was happening in the restaurant. So just quick on the results, 3.5 million impressions. This is all just within the Chicago area because you can geo-target just to the location around within the city and closer if you want to. 66,000 clicks, over 14,000 entries in the end, and a conversion rate of 34% due to this kind of like excite factor that we built in from the beginning. We're running another campaign at the moment off the success of that. So this is like trying to sort of play, because Chicago is a big political town, like right in the center of America, so trying to build that kind of like political vibe around it. There's also big debates that happen around the table about cow versus pig. Could you live without? Would it be bacon? Would it be steak? So really kind of starting to tap into that, right? Which meat reigns supreme? We're building a kind of political manifestos around each of these. You can get there over the top. So the great debate, starting to do some stuff. You've got like grassroots support, and they've got like bumper stickers and badges. And I mean, they do things a bit differently over America, but so people are getting into it. All the staff have chosen and all that kind of stuff, and you can really start to have some fun with it, right? So yeah, the campaign's only been live for like a week or so, I think. But we're really starting to build a bit of momentum around it. And if you tap into what you know from the user research you've done that excites people, and you start to build something around that, you get people talking about something that isn't necessarily to do with your business in the first place, but it brings sort of energy and excitement as part of an overall strategy. So the idea is that you vote for your chance to win dinner for a year. So you get to eat every few weeks. You can go to Valencia's Grill, eat and drink as much as you want, and take whoever you want. If the steak wins, we'll call them Secretary of Steak or something along those lines. But the idea is that they can then entertain people there, so it's much more of a kind of sharing vibe. So far it's gone really well. We've got over 1 million impressions, 40,000 clicks, 4,000 people have voted to enter in. We're getting click-through rates across the channels of around 7.5%, just because you're sort of starting to really build this energy.
So you can see. I hope you've been able to. We've been able to illustrate the journey that we've taken the brand through, that we have developed the brand, and how digital was an actual part of the process rather than just being dictated a brand, and how this worked. And these are the results just on some very basic social metrics. We started off in May with about 7,000 fans, and by now I think we're on 17,600. So we've had about 150% increase in page likes on Facebook. The restaurant generally has had a revenue uplift of just over 30% on a like-for-like basis, which actually completely exceeded all of their expectations and around all of this the social branding strategy that we've been doing. So the powers that be in the private equity firm upstairs are all very happy. We've had amazing engagement, up like 700%, and I mentioned the Facebook fans already. So this has given the concept a real boost, a real opportunity to launch successfully, and has created a personality and a brand with depth that will enable this to be rolled out across the US.
I think one of the interesting things is that you started off saying, can you do a website for us, right? And that was the first question, was like, yeah, fine, come over and do a website for us. And then we sort of used it as an in to sort of say, right, no, actually we want to really test this new approach that we've done to form a bigger sort of strategy around the restaurant.
Because when you're asked to do a website, you're saying, here's our brand, it was a logo, so that's not a brand like we were saying before. So it's like, well, we have to do a lot more than that in order to develop a really good brand. And that's what we did. So thanks very much, guys. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to answer them.